It is such an honor and a privilege this evening. Mr. Gelfarb. Yes, thank you so much. All right, if we all could please rise as Legislator David Gelfarb leads us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as our invocation is going to be presented by Rabbi Mara S. Nathan, the president of the Westchester Board of Rabbis. Rabbi. Thank you.
Having come together as the County Board of Legislators, you have been given the task of representing the best interests of all of us who live in Westchester County, regardless of our age, gender, religious orientation, economic reality, or party affiliation. Your mission is in part to work towards creating a just society in which we all feel protected and secure. Your mission is in part to hear the call of those in need, to preserve our right to freedom of religious expression, and to attempt to fashion an infrastructure that provides for all. Jewish people have lived in New York at least since 1654, when Sephardic refugees from Brazil arrived in the Dutch port of New Amsterdam. And certainly since World War II suburbanization, Jews have called Westchester County their home. Through involvement in synagogues, JCCs, UJA Federation, the Westchester Jewish Council, and many other Jewish organizations, international, national, and grassroots as well, we have created community, enriched our cultural connection, and expanded our intellectual understanding of our history and heritage, always with an agenda of social justice, tikkun olam, the repair of our world, at the forefront of our consciousness. How wonderful then to honor American Jewish World Service and hear from their outstanding president, Ruth Messenger, as a highlight of our Westchester Jewish History and Heritage Month. AJWS does not only work to realize human rights and end poverty in the developing world, but inspires us to think about those in need in our country and beyond, and recognize the impact each of us in our own way can have by being informed, speaking up, and speaking out for the social justice issues that are near to our hearts. Let us give thanks for all those pursuers of tikkun olam in our midst as we recognize the impact our Westchester Jewish community has had for good here and beyond. May we continue to be inspired to give our energy, both physical and spiritual, in pursuit of creating a world that is more whole and more holy. Amen.
Amen. I always wanted to do that. So good evening, everyone. Certainly, let's try that again. Good evening. That is so much better. As the Westchester County Board of Legislators Chair, it is my privilege to recognize and start with our Jewish History and Heritage Month. Before I get started, I know inside, before we came into the chamber, we certainly recognize the first chairman of the Board of Legislators and the smooth picture that he has right in the rotunda, which was Herman Geist. So let's give Herman Geist another round of applause. But right next to him is another great colleague of ours who has also the run of the chamber, a former majority leader, a certainly stalwart in the Jewish community, but a great friend to all of us here in the Board of Legislators, who also is a former colleague, the Honorable Martin Rogowski. I did recognize earlier a good friend of ours from the New York State Assembly that was here. And now also I see with us this evening is our county clerk, the Honorable Tim Idoni. Tim. You know, our nation has been both a haven and a home for Jewish Americans. Countless Jewish immigrants have come to our shores seeking better lives and opportunities, from those who arrived in New Amsterdam long before America's birth, to those of the past century who have sought refuge from our horrors and from the horrors of pogroms and the Holocaust. While immeasurably enriching our natural culture, Jewish Americans have also maintained their own unique identity. During Jewish American Heritage Month, we celebrate this proud history and honor the invaluable contributions Jewish Americans have made to our nation. The Jewish American story is an essential chapter of the American narrative. It is one of refuge from persecution, of commitment to faith, to service, democracy, and peace, and to the tireless work to achieve success. As leaders in every facet of American life, from athletics, entertainment, and the arts, to academia, business, government, and in our armed forces, Jewish Americans have shaped our nation and helped steer the course of our history. They have contributed to protecting the American principles of liberty, equal rights, and justice for all, while combating the powers of bigotry, wherever originating and whatever their target. Jewish community members carry on their cultural tradition of tikkun olam, or to repair the world, through good deeds and service. As they honor and maintain their ancient heritage, they set a positive example for all Americans and continue to strengthen our nation. Tonight, we recognize the great service to our country of the American Jewish World Service and its president, the Honorable Ruth W. Messenger. American Jewish World Service is the leading Jewish human rights and development organization working today to realize and protect human rights while also striving to end poverty in the developing world. These are immense endeavors, and our thanks are indeed warranted. We would also like to recognize the Westchester Jewish Council for its continued contributions to our great county, representing the 140 Jewish organizations and over 150,000 Jews of Westchester. It is our privilege to have you here this evening. And at this time, I'm going to ask for the presentation of the proclamation. 2/3 of our Jewish contingent to come down, the Honorable Michael Kaplowitz and the Honorable David Gelfarb. The Honorable Bernice Spreckman is not with us this evening, and we certainly wish her well as she is convalescing from some things. So, Mr. Kaplowitz.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and it's a pleasure to be 2/3 of, we are the taller portion of the Jewish caucus, but not the best looking of the Jewish caucus, if you know Bernice, and if she could, she would certainly be here with us. And she's the most senior member, I guess, at this point of the County Board of Legislators. We have the privilege, the honor, almost on a monthly basis to meet with and to invite into our home so many wonderful members and component parts of the Westchester community, the wonderful fabric of Westchester County, and this is Jewish History and Heritage Month, and David and I intimately and through our representation have so many wonderful celebrants of the holidays that are certainly upon us. It's very apt that we honor American Jewish World Services and Westchester Jewish Council, given our representation in the county, but unfortunately it remains very apt given world events. You say the word Syria, you say the country Afghanistan, last day or two you say Kenya, and you recognize that the mission is needed as much as ever. It would be very nice if we could legislate perhaps you out of existence, but unfortunately the way humankind works, people tend at times not to treat each other well. But we are honored here to recognize and to thank the American Jewish World Service, to thank Ruth Messenger, and to always thank, of course, Westchester Jewish Council. And when as legislators and legislature does that, we have proclamations signed by each and every member, and we have recognized the fabric and the work of the council, and we have recognized Jewish Heritage History and Heritage Month throughout Westchester County, and we have, of course, recognized American Jewish World Services as well. So they don't get a day, they get an entire month, You could pass it around if the county police ever stop you. You could share it. It will be of no value if you do get pulled over, but you'd have a nice story to tell and a great proclamation to show. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And to our honored guests, thank you. And we have these proclamations for you.
Mr. Gelfard, would you, before Ms. Mesh?
Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a real honor tonight to have representatives of the Westchester Jewish Council as well as the American Jewish World Service here. I actually have a more personal connection to the American Jewish World Service. My sister is a rabbi in Colorado. She actually worked for the American Jewish World Service in New York after she graduated from rabbinical school. Bet you didn't know that. But she did. And really, I have so many friends and colleagues and so many people in the community who are so active in the Westchester Jewish Council. It's just a fantastic group. While on the one hand, we appreciate all the work you do with respect to world events and world politics, closer to home in what has been a very tough economic period for so many people, you have really gone all out to provide a host of necessary services, from reading to mental health services to all kinds of educational services to children. My own cousin's daughter has been very active with the reading program in the White Plains schools. Her family has been very supportive of the reading program. So I know firsthand that both these organizations have just done an absolutely terrific job, and it is really appropriate during this time of Sukkot, this time of harvest, that we appreciate the work done by all of these community organizations. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here to do that tonight.
All right, thank you so much. So at this time, we're going to present first the proclamation to the Honorable Ruth Messenger, and then we will have a presentation to Paul Ward for the AJC.
Absolutely. Congratulations, and we're going to do that right front.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to call you up. Yes. Okay. At this time, first we were going to have remarks from the Honorable Paul Ward, right? So, Mr. President, I know that it's a new role for you since being elevated, I guess in July. And some folks laughed at that because I know that when you get elevated to certain positions, it's usually both congratulations and condolences at the same time. So congratulations to you. Mr. Ward, the floor is yours.
I have excellent news. My remarks will be extraordinarily brief. Yes, being elevated to the president of the Westchester Jewish Council can be considered a double-edged sword, but when you're working with the staff at the council, and specifically Elliot Forsheimer, it is only a blessing. So I will tell you that my first few months have been thoroughly enjoyable, working with the board, the executive committee, and the staff. We have a lot of work to do. We have some very bold plans in store, but I am confident that along with our help from our county legislators and all elected officials, we will be successful in continuing the great tradition that the council has set forth thus far. So with that, I thank you again for having us. We are honored to be here this evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Certainly, it is an honor and a privilege for me watching the Honorable Ruth Messenger as she's done so many things for the people of New York and now the people of the world. So without further ado, the Honorable Ruth Messenger.
So, first of all, thank you, Chairman Jenkins. And thank you to the legislators, Mike Kaplowitz and David Gelfarb, and to all of you who are here. It's very special to be invited into this magnificent chamber. And I do know something about, boards of legislators and county council chambers, and it's all a piece of my past life. But I thank you for your celebration of Jewish Heritage Month. And I thank you for, in the course of that celebration, recognizing and honoring the extraordinary work of the Westchester Jewish Council, and doing it at just the moment that American Jewish World Service has been privileged to join the council. Elliot tells me we are the 150th-ish member. But we are really honored to be a part of this council. And what I want to say on behalf of all of my board, friends, colleagues, staff of American Jewish World Service, many of whom are here, that we know the work of the Westchester Jewish Council, that we know the impact you've had in this community, from supporting Holocaust survivors to promoting interfaith dialogue to working to fulfill the promise of Tikkun Olam. And we know how much of your work, Paul and Elliot, how much of your work is done by a small but dedicated staff and a huge array of local activists and philanthropists and volunteers who are implementing creative approaches to some of the social, economic, cultural challenges that affect this community as they do every community. It's very special for us to become a member of the council. I look forward, Paul, with you and with Elliot, with your staff, to figuring out what else we can do here. And the good news is I don't have to figure it out myself. Because just as there is a Westchester Jewish Council, so there is also a Westchester Leadership Council of American Jewish World Service. And so the members of our Leadership Council, Judy Stern, who spoke in the other room, Diane Greenwald, Diane Werner, Pat Stanley, and Sally Hoffman, and others to come, are going to be working with the Westchester Jewish Council, the Westchester Jewish community, and I hope with the Board of Legislators, to help make the world a better place. So you heard a brief description of our work from your able chairman. We are the leading Jewish organization that works to realize human rights and end poverty in the developing world. We do that work fundamentally in two ways. We pursue lasting change by supporting more than 500 social justice projects that are not led by us. They are led by extraordinary activists in 19 countries in Asia, Africa, and the Americas, people who are working to implement their own vision of justice. We partner with them as they are doing work to advance the rights of women, girls, LGBT activists, as they work to promote recovery from conflict, disasters, and oppression, and we all know how much of that there is, unfortunately, and as they work to defend people's basic access to food, land, water, and livelihoods. From remote villages in Cambodia to urban slums in Kenya, a little bit too much in the news today, our partners in the developing world are helping to lift their own communities out of poverty. I want to mention one such partner because they have dressed me for the evening, and because it is Sukkot, a time when we recognize how fragile many of our living arrangements are. So there are, believe it or not, a large number of young women minors who have escaped from rape, violence, conflict in Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and in many instances walked or hitchhiked to Kenya, and you can imagine the consequences there, sometimes having seen members of their families massacred, sometimes having been assaulted by the same people who killed their parents, and who have quite literally no place to live until they get to the organization and the safe houses that are run by an organization called Heshima Kenya. There, they're in a safe place. They can deal with what is really quite substantial post-traumatic stress. They're getting an education, and they're learning trades that will allow them to become economically independent. And one of those trades, and I hope you agree with me, is the most magnificent tie-dye in the world. So this is one of many scarves from Heshima, Kenya. Now, I mentioned briefly what our international work is, but it's important for me that you all know what our national work is, what we do in this country. Because in the United States, American Jewish World Service works to rally leaders, activists, and volunteers, people like all of you in this chamber, not just those on our leadership council already. And we mobilize people to change United States policies that will improve the lives of people in the developing world. In the last 2 years, we mobilized many American Jews, including through significant congregations in Westchester County, to take action with us to try to reform the United States international food aid policies so that hungry people can get the food that they need to survive all over the world. And I would be remiss if I don't know if Andy Laub is still here, but I would be remiss if I did not say a huge thank you to Congressman Engel, who co-sponsored what is probably, sorry to say this, the only bipartisan piece of legislation that's actually had some life in this Congress in the last year. It didn't quite pass, but it mobilized over 200 members of the House with the intention of trying to change our food policies in ways that would feed a lot more people. You're all going to be hearing from us soon because we are, or from members of the Leadership Council, because we are about to launch a new campaign which will be focused on garnering Jewish support to empower women, girls, and LGBT people worldwide to fight against violence, to change the lives of the too many people in too many places in the world who are marginalized in their societies. So stay tuned. And stay tuned as well for the other programs that we run, an American Jewish World Service Global Justice Fellowship, which will select some people to travel with us to see the work firsthand. There's lots of more information about us. We'll be happy to provide it, and your Leadership Council will be getting in touch with you. But I wanted to make one more mention of Sukkot, because Millie Jasper, who is here, came and came up to me at the cocktail reception to show me a photo that she got from Rick Jacobs, distinguished rabbi, formerly of Westchester Reform, who traveled with me during Sukkot to the refugee camps in Chad, where people had fled from Darfur. Darfur is still a major problem in the world, but Rick and I were in Chad probably 5 years ago during Sukkot with 2 or 3 other quite distinguished rabbis. The people were living in insubstantial huts made of 2x4s and plastic. And these rabbis took one look at one of these huts and said, "That's a sukkah." So we got out and took a photo in front of the sukkah, and Millie has the picture for anybody who wants to see it. It's really quite extraordinary. And one of those rabbis wrote after the trip, "My eyes were open to the ways in which the choices that I make here in the United States each and every day impact the developing world." So very briefly, that's what we're about. I know that often any one of us is sort of trying to choose between the local and the global. And I just want to say to you, it's not a choice. We live in an interdependent world. How we act locally has a tremendous impact on people's lives all over the world. I know that the Westchester Jewish Council and the Westchester Jewish community understand this, and I look forward to deepening our partnership. In order to do that, I'm counting on the work of the American Jewish World Service Westchester Leadership Council, the information that they will provide to you, the ways in which they will make our data available to you so you can work with us to make change in the world. I close with my favorite teaching from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who said, "In a free society where terrible wrongs exist, some are guilty, but all are responsible." So let's not get caught up in the minutia of our own hectic, daily, and sometimes difficult lives. Let's not imagine that we don't have something to do with alleviating poverty and promoting human rights, because everything we do is of immense significance and can make a difference in the lives of individuals, families, communities, and the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The folks understand that the Westchester Jewish Council, this is a meeting night, so we are going to give an opportunity for the Westchester Jewish Council to go back into the reception area and hold their council meeting. We thank everyone so much. Certainly we thank all of you that came out this evening to celebrate with us, with you, for Jewish Heritage and History Month. So thanks so much. We're going to give it 2 minutes for that to happen, and we're going to allow, and I see him standing there, the council president from the great city of Yonkers, my council president, Chuck Lesnick, is here as well, right? So thank you so much, and we look forward to the continued work with Westchester Jewish Council, and now with your new member, American Jewish World Services. Thank you so much. Legislators, please stay in place so we can kick right in. Right. Hey, Viva, make sure to bring the other pockets. One pocket's for AJ. All right. I call this regular meeting of the Westchester County Board of Legislators to order. If we all could please rise. while legislator Gail Farb leads us in the pledge to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, give us the strength, courage, and wisdom to always act in the best interest of the people of Westchester while we're in this chamber. Let us keep in mind that every decision that we make impacts upon the life, health, and safety of all our great county residents. Amen. Madam Clerk.
Majority Leader Harkam.
Here.
Minority Leader Mazzano. Ms. Borgia.
Here.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Kaplowitz. Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Ryan. Here. Ms. Shimsky.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa. Here. Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Williams. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Harkam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I move the consent calendar with no suggested revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Harkam. Mr. Mazzano. Mr. Williams.
I'm in agreement.
We are on the consent agenda. Mr. Harkam.
Move the meeting minutes for Tuesday, September 3rd. That meeting was held at 7 p.m.
Without objection, members, so ordered. Madam Clerk, public comment.
Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. I'll call the names of the speakers and ask that you please come down the aisle to my left behind the black ropes. Regina Riley and Ed Riley.
Good evening. My name is Regina Riley from the 9th Legislative District. Human rights begins with the right to life. The word right does not originate with the federal government, but with God, whose very name means independent, non-contingent, personal, self-sufficient existence. I am who am. The genetic individual continues from the joining of the half cell from a mother and from a father in an unbroken human life through gestation, birth, through childhood, adulthood, and old age until death. Therefore, these people who live, they have a right to live. And those children also have another right. They have a right to a mother and a father who actually begot them through God's grace. So I ask that the Commission on Human Rights, which this body has formed, take into consideration the right to the life of the fetal and embryonic child, and the right of every child to a mother and a father. Thank you.
Ed Riley.
My name is Ed Riley. I'm from Croton. Last time I was here, I challenged all of you, but especially the pro-abortionists, which is the overwhelming majority of you, to go to the internet, because you're not very curious people, you abortionists, and to see what you propose. See what third trimester abortion in up to 9 months. And now Planned Parenthood in Florida was proposing killing the child after it was born. That was their trial balloon in Florida. See what it's like to kill a child. I heard this woman before speak about human rights around the world. Killing young women and young girls or twin girls or triplet girls in New York State is a human rights issue. When you burn a child to death, that's not fun. When pro-lifers make the charge about fetal pain, you pro-abortionists are not intelligent enough or not curious enough to get on the damn internet and look up to see what we're talking about, just to make sure you're not making a fool out of yourself. But you're so ideological. Any lie will do. You don't even get off your butt and look up what Planned Parenthood did in Delaware, only because Gosnell worked in Delaware as well as Pennsylvania. You shut down the state of Pennsylvania, inspecting those damn abortion mills in Pennsylvania. You shut them down, just like they don't investigate the abortion mills in New York, because you control this state. So that nobody looked in that clinic for 25 years, and the governor of the state specifically said he didn't want state inspectors to go into those abortion mills, just like you didn't want these people to go into the abortion mills of Binder down the street or Hakamovich from Scarsdale. You Democrats don't want those places inspected, and the perfect example is Texas. The New York Times, which is not only the most anti-Catholic paper in the United States, it's the most pro-abortion. They would jettison everything to kill children. It's so close to their heart. Why do they object to that Texas law? Because those Texas abortion mills would be routinely inspected. They required that they have rights, the doctors, if they had one. Many of them don't have doctors, don't use doctors. Remember, it's between her and the doctor. Look at that California bill, if you think that's what it's about. They didn't want those abortion mills to be up to standard like other medical facilities in Texas. And we have women right here who worked in an abortion mill, who especially was bringing girls across state lines and bringing them to New York. Do you think she ever went in that abortion mill and looked in those buckets to see what happened? Do you think she ever had that curiosity? I don't believe it. I can't believe people are they're that ignorant. I'd like to reference this, and I'll give you a copy next week. This article was done by an atheist.
Mr. Riley,
I don't have his
please.
name. Oh, here is Chris Rostenberg. He has done, and I'm about finished, Mr. Chairman, a great job describing the lies abortionists tell to deny what's really going on in abortion mill. It is beyond belief. It's incredible. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Regular order of business.
Under Standing Committees, item 5223 from the Committee on Appointments is the appointment of B. Dreschler as the Legislative District 6 member of the Westchester County Women's Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2013.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Appointments interviewed Ms. Drexler. We found her to have a real breadth and depth of understanding of the issues involved that concern women in our county and in our society, and we wholeheartedly recommend her confirmation here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item, Mr. Gelfarb.
Wanted to say that I recommended Ms. Drexler for that position. She's a tremendous advocate for the community. She's an attorney, a mother, runs her own law firm, a field representative for women's rights, and full integration of women into our community. And I'm very, very pleased with the Appointments Committee as apparently unanimously gives the nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Gelfarb. Other members? Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Borgia. Yes. Mr. Burrows. Yes. Mr. Gelfarb. Aye. Mr. Kaplowitz. Aye. Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 16-0. Item 6394 from the Committee on Appointments is a joint resolution appointing Teresita Abe Kruger and Tamaris Princey as members of the Westchester County Hispanic Advisory Board for terms to expire December 31st, 2013.
Ms. Shimsky.
The Committee on Appointments also interviewed Ms. Abe Kruger and Ms. Princey. We found that each of them had complementary expertise in many of the issues facing the Hispanic community. We think they will be productive members of the board, and we recommend their confirmation as well.
Thank you so much. Members on this item. Without objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 6373 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act authorizing the county attorney to compromise the claims against King Pharmaceuticals made on behalf of Westchester County to be reimbursed for overpayments in connection with Medicaid prescription drugs provided to residents of Westchester County.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is a compromise of claims against King Pharmaceuticals. This board also authorized the retention of the law firm Kirby McInerney and Squire, now Kirby McInerney, on a contingency basis to pursue these claims, and this would be a compromise for the amount of $2,495. And Budget and Appropriations move this forward to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 6374 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to participate in a class action lawsuit against online companies allegedly engaged in circumventing local hotel motel taxes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you very much. As you are all aware, Westchester County collects a 3% per room fee known as the hotel tax from all of its hotels and motel establishments. Nassau County started a lawsuit, and this would authorize us to join with them on their lawsuit, that would collect the additional revenues that were not originally collected when these online companies bought rooms for resale at a lower value. When they resold these rooms at a higher value, they neglected to pay the extra hotel tax to the counties in which these rooms were available. And therefore, if this lawsuit is successful, the county will receive additional hotel tax revenues, which are substantial, and we can use them. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 6375 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act authorizing the county attorney and the Commissioner of Finance to compromise the liability of Westchester County to pay workers' compensation benefits to a former county employee in lieu of future payments.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this act does authorize the county attorney and the Commissioner of Finance to pay a lump sum to an employee who was injured on the job and qualifies for workers' compensation benefits. The lump sum payment would be $152,000 that has been negotiated between the employee and the county, and Budget and Appropriations move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 6355 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, an act authorizing the county to enter into an agreement with the City of White Plains and Winbrook Phase 1 GP LLC or its designee to finance certain public infrastructure improvements in support of a fair and affordable housing development known as Winbrook Phase 1 to be located in the city, and to accept a grant at no cost to the county of any necessary property rights.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is a very interesting and very much needed redevelopment phase that we are requesting that the County Board of Legislators approve the issuance of $1.3 million in bonds to finance the cost of infrastructure improvements related to the first phase of this affordable housing development that is actually just down the street from here. and I will turn this over to Legislator Borgia to talk about the actual project.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first phase of a long-term project that redevelops the Winbrook Public Housing Complex, originally built in 1949. This will include the construction of 103 fair and affordable rentals at the 60% or below of Westchester County's area median income. It is a building that is going to be situated on what is now an empty lot, but in a very convenient area right here on between Coropus and South Lexington. So residents there will have access to many services, shopping, transportation opportunities, employment opportunities. Once this building is constructed, it will be current residents in the other buildings that make up the Winbrook complex will be given first priority to move into this building, and once the transfer of the tenancy has happened, that will commence then phase 2 of the project, which is to tear down the existing old buildings and recreate these new buildings, which are much more comfortable architecturally in keeping with the surrounding communities, and have many more amenities. And one of the interesting amenities is actually going to be on the main floor of the building. There's going to be a learning center that is open to the public and the community. They're putting together between a $1.5 million loan from the city of White Plains and a $3.5 million grant from HUD, a training center and facility that can help people to get job employment skills and to assist people in finding employment. So this is it is a project that, as I said, has many phases, and when the phases are complete, we'll have over 1,000 units as opposed to its 450 units now. And it's something that we think is really good development in terms of how to create affordable housing that not only benefits the residents at who qualify for such affordable housing, but also provides a benefit to the community in general. So Government Operations was pretty enthusiastic about this project, and we recommend that it move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to rise and say I am delighted to be in favor of this act and this money to devote to Winbrook redevelopment phase 1. This represents a new and enlightened way of building affordable housing, and I think that the White Plains Housing Authority, together with their board and the City of White Plains, as well as this board, need to be congratulated for this effort. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo my colleague Alfreda Williams, this project is long awaited, and it was really a pleasure for Alfreda and I to be present for the meetings that where our membership took this up, both in Government Operations and today Budget. It was a very good discussion led by the very able Executive Director of the White Plains Housing Authority, Matt Carter. We were able to see a piece of White Plains' housing inventory in a condition now where this rehabilitation is necessary. What does it do? It will ultimately provide nearly 1,100 housing units in all of the buildings on the 9 acres, including the brand new structure, or at least the first structure that will be put in the lot across from the courthouse. New units in a very important piece of the overall housing infrastructure for White Plains. And of course, that's been a topic of discussion over the years. Housing of this type, senior housing with maybe 7 buildings in the city with long waiting lists. Housing is needed here in the county seat the way it's needed throughout Westchester County. And this represents an excellent plan for the rehabilitation of needed housing here in White Plains. And it's going to do something else too, because as we've all been able to see through the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency, our economic development arm here within the county over the years, we have changed the face of downtown White Plains through flexing of economic muscle. this enhances what has gone on in recent years by giving to a very important part of our city a new, fresh, modern look. And that's ultimately what we're going to have there. So it's, as I said, exciting project, and we devoted good committee time here to it, and I'm so happy, along with Legislator Williams, that it's here on the floor for us to consider tonight. Obviously urge its passage.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Other members? Members, we are on discussion on items number 6, which is ID 6355, and item 7, 6354. So, other members? Well, first I want to say I see the executive director here with us this evening. Mr. Matt Carter is here with us this evening as it's been trying to shepherd this particular project as it moves forward. I know many of us have had discussions, including last week at the Committee of the Whole, about everyone's unanimous feeling on the investments that should be made around our county and every community as it relates to the investments, as it relates to fair and affordable housing, and to not only build new stock, but to upgrade the stock that's there. And I think that this was another great opportunity to do that. Certainly when we get to a little later on in the capital budget season, to make sure that we continue to invest and add in money to do these particular items, has been this board's tendency for many, many years, to make sure that those communities that have been, we want to not say, that have been participants in ensuring that fair and affordable housing is available in all of the communities throughout Westchester County, that they are not unfairly penalized for being people that have moved forward with that type of housing. So certainly, this is a great project, and we're looking forward to it moving forward. Members, without objection, on item number 6, ID 6355, unless there's objection, we will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 6354 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing the issuance of $1,311 in bonds to finance capital project BPL-01 for infrastructure improvements related to the Winbrook Phase 1 affordable housing development in the city of White Plains.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, so moved. And might I add that this project will also move forward with funding from HUD, which was not withheld because the city of White Plains stands alone as a recipient, and it's not necessary to go through Westchester County, so it was not withheld. Thank you. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Unless there's objection, members, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Motions, resolutions, call of the districts.
Mr. Mazzano.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would like to, if I may, talk about two men tonight that passed away. One, I'm not quite sure if everybody knows, but if you looked at the list of my memorial resolution people, one name was Frank Garrido. That may not ring a bell to all of you, but that's a former member of the Westchester County Board of Supervisors. And Frank left the Board of Supervisors to run for mayor of New Rochelle and was elected and served 5 years as mayor of New Rochelle. And I would tell you that there's a neighborhood in New Rochelle called the West End. And in the 1970s, it was all Italian. It was like a 90% Italian neighborhood. And he was the first person from that neighborhood ever to get elected mayor. And it was such an unbelievable accomplishment. The neighborhood was so proud. The election night, imagine this, folks, we've all been in elections. Election night turned into a block party to the West End of New Rochelle when Frank Garrido was elected mayor. After he left mayor, he actually worked with our Board of Legislators. He came back over the years on some of the affordable housing projects we've worked on. Frank was the president of the New Rochelle NRC, later changed its name to the New Rochelle NDR. And New Rochelle NRC and NDR built 1,200 units of affordable housing in New Rochelle. Some of that was funded partly by county dollars, and Frank has been here in front of our budget committee testifying over the years. And the one some legislators have been here for about the last 10 years might remember Garrido Manor. which was a senior citizen building in the west end of New Rochelle that we voted for. And I worked alongside Frank on that. And it was 102 senior citizens units in New Rochelle, and Frank pushed that through. He was a great man, and I was very sad to see him pass. But I know he's happy because he really missed his wife, who had passed away early.
So, Mr. Maisano, all legislators with you.
I would like to have all legislators join me in Frank Garita, former member of our board, at least the Board of Supervisors, under a different name. And now I'm going to briefly talk about my dad. I'm going to try not to get choked up. First, I just want to say thank you to our board, the members of the Board of Legislators, our staff, in particular Ken and Tina. The support I received when my dad died was amazing. All of you. I mean, everybody in some way. If you couldn't make it, you sent a card, you called me, people came to the wake, people came to the funeral. It was really meant a lot to me. I just wanted to say that to all of you. My dad, at the end, was in a bad place. This was somebody that all of us could understand we need to go to heaven, because he was in a bad place on earth with dementia and brain damage at the end. So he's up in heaven with my mother, who was, so I know some of the new legislators don't know, but certainly Michael Kapowitz and Bill Ryan remember both my mom and dad running around back here, checking up on me when I first started out as a young legislator. They were always here for the swearing in, both my parents. They've been in this chamber many times. My mom was the politician. My dad just went out and worked hard and paid for me and mom to play politics. One of the most interesting things about when my dad died was my dad was very active in the community, but nobody knew it. He wasn't someone that was getting awards. He was just doing stuff. My father worked on so many things in New Rochelle. And the amazing thing is, and some of you even said it to me, when you read my dad's obituary, you couldn't believe, you said, wow, now I know why you got into public service. I read your dad's obituary. He did so many different things. He was in our church. He was the head of the parish council. He was the head of his beach club that he belonged to. He was the head of the Rotary Club. My dad had the strange thing. Every time he joined a group, he ended up being president of every group he joined, and he always made every group that he was involved with better. I also want to point out that my dad was a Korean War vet, saw combat in the Korean War. He was the hardest working person I ever met. I mean, he puts me to shame. My dad got up at 4 o'clock every day. He would go work out early in the morning. He'd get to his office at 6. He'd work till 6. He did that for like 50 years and still found time to be the cub master at our church, and the parish council president, and all the other things he did, and Little League coach. He was, I don't know how he did it. I couldn't do it. I don't know how the man managed his time to work so many hours and do so much in the community. He was a really great man. He also had a lot of impact with elected officials. In the 70s, my dad was in computers in the 60s when they had those giant computers with the key punch machines and those giant mainframe computers. And one of the things my dad developed was a program to do parking tickets for municipalities. And there was a time where my dad's company, Municipal Computer Service in Larchmont, did the parking tickets for most of the municipalities in Westchester County. So he knew all the mayors, he knew all the council people, he got hired by them all. He did great work. Unfortunately for Dad's business, a little thing called the PC came out. And that was the end of his business, but he had done very well, and he was able to parlay that to move into Reese Brothers. I don't know if Reese Brothers means anything to you, but it's a major corporation in New York City, and what they did was, if you remember about, and you saw this a lot starting in the 80s and 90s, where you saw like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and like a Pizza Hut all in the same place. That's Reese Brothers. They own some big fancy restaurants, but they also were the first ones to group the restaurants. And my dad became their controller there after he moved on from his business. He had an incredibly successful business career. And this is kind of incredible for a guy that never went to college. He went to college for a few years but didn't graduate. And he also was this tough kid from Brooklyn. And my dad when he was young, when my mother found him, he had a leather jacket, jeans like Fonzie, and on his leather jacket it said Lefty. That was his nickname in his social club. But he went from that Lefty in Brooklyn to this very successful guy in Westchester County that I'm so very proud of. And so I would just again say thank you to all of you for honoring my father and honoring my family when he passed away. And the only thing I could tell you is I feel good about Dad's passing, and that he was suffering so badly, and now he's in heaven with my mom. And I think, for the most part, Bill and Mike and I started the same day, and they spent a lot of time with my parents, and they were like a tag team. Everybody knew how much they loved each other, and they're back in heaven. They're up on a cloud. Hopefully they can send me some advice. I always need advice. So hopefully I'm getting advice from both. Certainly my mother gave my dad a lot of advice when he got to heaven. I'm sure that happened. But nevertheless, thank you, everybody. I am at peace with the fact that my dad is up in heaven with my mom, and he was a bad place there on earth. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzano. Other members? Ms. Borgia.
I'd like to ask my colleagues to join me on the resolution for John Mangialardi. I'm sure many of you read the news reports about this man, John, who was running for town justice in Ossining on the Republican line. He had been a candidate a couple of times. But I knew John basically through all of his volunteer work in the community. He was really a lovely, lovely, lovely man. And, you know, for all of us who get involved in elections and really, you know, adrenaline drives us to do a lot of things. And unfortunately, in John's case, it really did have a tragic ending as he was putting up campaign signs and got hit at a very, very, very dangerous traffic intersection. He was really a wonderful, wonderful person, really dedicated to his community and loved his family, was so proud of his family. The last conversation I had with him, because both of our daughters are going to college in Washington, D.C., was about how we have to arrange to pick them both up at the Stamford train station when they come home for Thanksgiving. So, you know, I feel very sad about his passing. He was also a member of the church where I am a pretty active parishioner. So it was a sad day for all of us in Ossining. And then I have to add two other names, too. Unfortunately, this weekend, Ossining mom, Eileen Poletta, P-O-L-E-T-T-A, died very quickly after a short illness. And then we also had a traffic accident. A man, I'm sorry, I have to give you the exact name, died in a motorcycle accident. So it's a rough week for a lot of us, I guess. A lot of sadness this week, so thank you.
All legislators with John Magliardi. Thank you so much. Ms. Shimsky.
I'd like to be included with legislator A. Williams on the proclamation for Nettie Lee Jackson.
As would I. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to be included on the resolution for the Krasinski for Mayor
No worries. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Yes, I'd like to add Sir Charles C. Girola, Yorktown, and Vincent Pinelli, who was lately of Yorktown but spent much of his life in Pelham. Perhaps Legislator Mazzano would like to join me.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplowitz. Other members? If we all could please rise and observe a moment of silence for all of those in the memorial resolutions, certainly James Mazzano, John Magliardi, and all of the folks that are in our memorial resolutions. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we adjourn this meeting and that we will reconvene on October 7th at 7 p.m.
Mr. Mazzano. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Harcum.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Yes. Mr. Williams. Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Yes. On the motion of Mr. Harcum, the board stands adjourned.